Most people hate the word failure. Nobody wants to fail. Nobody sets out hoping things go wrong. Nobody wants to put effort into something and come up short. But a lot of people misunderstand why they failed. They think they failed because they were not talented enough. They think they failed because they're unlucky. They think they failed because other people had advantages. Sometimes those things do matter, but very often the real reason is much simpler. They quit. Not always in the obvious way. Sometimes people hear a word quit and imagine someone giving up dramatically. They imagine someone throwing their hands up and saying they're done. Most quitting does not look like that. Most quitting is quieter, simpler. It looks like skipping a day, then another, then another. It looks like losing interest the moment progress slows down. It looks like deciding something is not worth the effort anymore. It looks like convincing yourself you'll come back later and then never coming back. A lot of goals do not end because people fail, they end because people stop. Think about how many things require time before results appear. Learning an instrument, getting in shape, building a business, making content, learning a language, improving at a sport. Most of these things are frustrating at the beginning. You're usually bad at them. Progress is slow, the rewards are small, the effort feels much larger than the results. That is exactly where most people leave. Not because success is impossible, but because the uncomfortable part lasted longer than they expected. They had expectations and they were not matched. People often assume successful people had some secret advantage, some luck. Sometimes they did, but many times they simply stayed around long enough. They kept going after the excitement disappeared. They kept working after motivation faded. They continued when the process became repetitive. The difference between success and failure is often much less dramatic than people think. Sometimes the difference is just time. A lot of people quit because they expected progress to be faster. They imagine improvement as a straight line. Work hard, get results, keep improving. Reality looks usually different. You improve a little, then nothing seems to happen. Then you improve again, then things slow down. Then suddenly you make a big gear jump. Growth is very often very uneven. The problem is that people quit during the slow parts. They assume nothing is happening. Meanwhile, the people who keep going eventually reach the stage everyone sees. Think of a flower. You don't just stare at it for hours and say it's not growing, but day after day, week after week, it somehow still grows, right? Of course, because it takes time. Another reason people quit is because they become attached to immediate results. If they don't see proof quickly, they start questioning everything: the goal, the process, their own abilities. The effort feels pointless because the reward hasn't arrived yet. But many worthwhile things take longer than expected. A seed does not become a tree in a week. Skills do not appear overnight. Confidence does not develop instantly. A lot of success comes from surviving long enough to see the results of your effort. Sounds simple, because it is simple. Now, simple does not mean easy, but it is simple. Don't overcomplicate it. There is also the issue of discomfort. People love the idea of success. They don't always like the process required to get there. The process can be boring, very repetitive, very frustrating. The process can make you question a lot of things and question yourself. Everyone wants the result. fewer people are willing to deal with the part that comes before it. That is why so many goals are just abandoned. Not because, like I said before, not because they were impossible or unrealistic for that matter, but because the work became less exciting than the actual dream. Another thing that people forget a lot is that failure itself is a part of progress. You try something, it doesn't work. You adjust, you learn, you improve. That's normal. The problem comes when people treat every setback like the final thing. One bad result is proof you cannot do it. One mistake becomes proof they aren't good enough. One difficult time period becomes proof that the goal is unrealistic, it's impossible. In reality, almost everyone who achieves something meaningful spends time failing. The difference is that they don't treat every failure as the end. They treat it as information, as learning, as improvement, as something to move through. Many people never reach that stage because they quit before they have enough experience to get better. Imagine quitting a movie after 10 minutes and deciding you know how it ends. That's how some people treat their own goals. Their own entire lives, actually. They leave before the story has a chance to develop. They judge the outcome before enough time has passed. They decide the future based on a very small part of the process. Sometimes people quit because they're embarrassed. They worry about looking stupid. They worry about what others think. They worry about failing in public. But most people are too busy thinking about their own lives to focus on yours. And even if they do notice, their opinion will matter far less than the opportunities you lose by stopping. The truth is that almost every skilled person has a long history of looking very inexperienced. Every expert was once a beginner. Every confident person was once unsure. Every successful person has moments they would probably rather forget. The difference that they kept going long enough to move past them. This doesn't mean that you should never quit anything. Some goals are wrong for you. Some paths genuinely lead absolutely nowhere. Sometimes changing direction is the smart decision, but many people are not changing direction. They're abandoning goals because things became a little hard. That is a completely different situation. Difficulty is not proof that something is impossible. Difficulty is often proof that something is worth doing. Very uncomfortable truth is that many people are much closer to success than they realize when they quit. They just cannot see it. Progress is often invisible until enough of it has accumulated. You don't always know how close you are. That is what makes quitting so dangerous. You could be walking away right before things start improving. You could be stopping right before the lessons begin paying off. You could be giving up right before the breakthrough you have been working towards so hard. And you would never know. At the end of the day, failure and quitting are not the same thing. Failing is part of the process. Everybody fails. Everybody struggles. Everybody makes a lot of mistakes. Quitting is ending the process entirely. And for a surprising number of people, the reason they never reached their goal wasn't because they lacked talent or anything. It wasn't because they lacked intelligence. It wasn't because success was impossible. I keep repeating myself in that sense, but that's what people think. But the reason they don't reach their goal is because they stopped before they gave themselves enough time. The goal outlasted their patience. The challenge outlasted their motivation. The process outlasted their commitment. And when they look back years later, what feels like failure was often something much simpler. They failed because they quit.